Hey everyone, this is David Brown with the migration update for March 26th, 2024 from the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. Today was the best day of the season so far for overall birding, and we had some really nice highlights, so I have a lot of photos that I'm really excited to share with you. Thank you to everyone who left a comment on yesterday's video. For today's video, if you've had a cool bird sighting recently, why don't you leave a comment letting us know where you are and what you saw. Our Lyco Birds YouTube channel is getting awfully close to 5,000 subscribers. If you're already a subscriber, thank you so much. And if you're not a subscriber, consider hitting the subscribe button to help us push past 5,000. All right, let's jump right into it. Kim and I started the morning, of course, at the East Spit. When we first arrived, this osprey was flying over the marina. And remember, we only had the first osprey of the season yesterday, so it was nice to get another close look at one. Osprey are black and white raptors that are quite lanky. Look how long the wings are and somewhat pointed and just black and white all over. And here's the osprey hovering, so it was facing into the wind and flapping, staying stationary and looking down below it, looking for fish that it might want to go down and grab. I made a comment to Kim about how we had seen a fox sparrow a couple weeks ago but hadn't seen one since, and just a few seconds later we looked ahead of us on the path and there was a fox sparrow. So fox sparrows are large sparrows, and they have kind of dark reddish-brown streaking, very distinctive. Shortly after that, we had a new bird for this season. So here we see a small grayish flycatcher with a whitish throat. This is the first eastern phoebe of the season, and we actually had two of them together. From the East Spit, we had 41 species today. We got over to Braddock Bay Park to start the Hawk Watch around 9 a.m., and it was a fairly warm day with a southeasterly wind. The skies were mostly cloudy, sometimes thin high clouds, sometimes thicker lower clouds rolling through, and sometimes some periods of sun. So it's really changing weather a lot throughout the day. And there was rain off to the west of us, but we stayed dry the whole day. And with those southeasterly winds, it was a favorable wind, and we had a really good day of migration, both for songbirds and for raptors. It was a bit gloomy to start the count, but we did have some turkey vultures get up, and they flew a little distance, and then they landed in the trees across the bay, kind of out towards the West Spit. So here we have a group of those vultures waiting for the conditions to improve before they continue their migration. Here we have a shorebird with two breast bands and a high-pitched call. This is a killdeer, and we had around 25 killdeer migrate over today. And eventually, conditions improved enough that with the wind and the thermals, the turkey vultures were able to get up. So here they are circling to gain some altitude. And here's those same turkey vultures gliding towards us. You can see from a distance, turkey vultures look large and dark and hold their wings up into a V shape called a dihedral. And they tend to wobble when they fly, so that distinguishes them from the eagles, which are much more steady when they fly. And here's a closer look at a turkey vulture in case you forgot what they look like. They're sort of two-toned on the underside and have a red featherless head. Here we have a brownish woodpecker, and we see some yellow shafts to the feathers. This is a northern flicker, and he's got a mustache, so we know it's a male. Here we have a raptor with a long tail, somewhat long pointed wings, so a lanky shape overall. We have an owl-like facial disc. So this is a northern harrier, and it's one of the brown types, so either a juvenile or an adult female, and we can tell them apart by looking at the amount of streaking on the underside. So we have a lot of streaking, including here in the patagial area and all down through the breast onto the belly. This is an adult female northern harrier. Here we have part of a flock of red-winged blackbirds. You can see the one male here, and then others in the female plumage. And today it was nice to see some flocks of rusty blackbirds migrating. They're a songbird that's in great decline, so we're happy to see any that we can. How do you identify them? Well, they kind of look like common grackles overall, but they don't have those super long tails. They're more of the typical blackbird size and shape. We see the yellow eye here, and they have a bit of a tail that flares out near the tip. Those of you who watched my videos last year are probably well familiar with the local Cooper's hawk, who detests turkey vultures and chases them at every opportunity. And why a Cooper's hawk who hates turkey vultures so much chooses to nest under a flyway where we get about 30,000 turkey vultures every spring, who knows, but he was at it today chasing a turkey vulture away from his nesting territory. Here we have a large dark raptor. We see that the wings pinch in a little bit here near the body on the trailing edge. We see a relatively small head and a longer tail. We see a little bit of golden color here on the back of the neck. This is a golden eagle, and on this one we don't see any white in the wings, no white patches at all, don't really see a white base to the tail, so this is likely an adult. Compare that to this one, which is the exact same shape, but we do see some small white patches in the wings and also a white base to the tail, so this would be an immature golden eagle. Here we have a hawk with that classic Buteo shape with somewhat broad wings, kind of a medium length tail, just very well proportioned overall. If we look in the shoulders, we see dark patagial bars and we see a belly band. So this is a red-tailed hawk. We see a dark trailing edge to the wing and a red tail. Lets us know it's an adult red-tailed hawk. Here's another golden eagle that passed by a short time after the others. In fact, between 11 and 11:30 a.m., we had 4 golden eagles go by. And I'd like to talk about this one specifically because a local birder sent me an email tonight with a link to a photo that he took of a bird that looks identical to this one. So he likely saw the same bird, and he was asking what time we saw it. And it turns out we had it at 11:15, and he had it at 12:16. We're at Braddock Bay, and he was over in Webster, which is about 13 miles to the east of us. So in an hour, the bird got around 13 miles, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but it was fighting into a headwind, so I think everything was kind of moving slow again today. But it's really interesting when you can follow a specific bird and know that it got from one spot to another spot in a certain time. Here we have a small raptor with very pointed wings. So we have a small falcon, and we look at this facial pattern and the fact that it's overall light underneath. This is an American kestrel. Here we have a hawk with a long tail and long rounded wings, so we should be thinking accipiter. We see orange barring underneath, so that rules out American goshawk. So we're considering adult either Cooper's hawk or sharp-shinned hawk, and we had a little bit of debate about this one, but from what I'm seeing, we see a bird with a large head, and I think one of my other photos showed that the nape looked a little bit pale. So to me, this looks like an adult Cooper's hawk. Now you might say, well, look at the tail. Doesn't that look like a squared off tail? But really, when the tail is completely folded closed like that, and especially from this angle, you shouldn't be going off of the, is the tail squared off or rounded? It's just not a reliable field mark when the tail is completely closed like this, unless you get a better look at how the tail feathers are actually laying against each other. And speaking of the G word, here's a bird that I spotted to the left of us by the corner pines, and I said to the others, you might want to get on this bird, because what we have here has a long tail, so we should be thinking accipiter. It's got that streaking of the typical juvenile accipiter plumage, but look how broad these wings are and how bulky the body is. This is a big, bulky accipiter with broad wings. This is an American goshawk. And taking a look at the top side of the same bird, we see a lot of white mottling on the top. We also see sort of wavy, inconsistent bands on the tail. And this is just a huge, bulky accipiter. When you see them, you often don't even think it's an accipiter. You might mistake it for a buteo, like a red-shouldered hawk. And it's a bit of a rarity. I think last year we had maybe 6 or 7, but the 2 seasons before that, we didn't have any at all. It's a bird that historically there were higher numbers of, but has become quite elusive in recent years. So every American goshawk we see is something really special. And I should say, for me, this is my first American goshawk. And what I mean by that is they changed the name. They actually split the former species, which was called northern goshawk, and they split it into a European version and our newly named American goshawk. Here we have a tight flock of small songbirds that are kind of yellowish and peachy colored underneath. This is a flock of cedar waxwings, and they were my first for the season. This photo isn't very good because the bird was far away, but here we have a buteo in a glide posture that's looking very angular. And just looking at the overall colors, we see kind of a mixture of whites, but also some darks here, especially in the wrist area. So this is a light morph rough-legged hawk. And again, not a very good look. And we also had a dark morph rough-legged hawk Before this one, it was too distant to get photos, but it's always nice when you see the two different color morphs, both the light morph and the dark morph of rough-legged hawk. We've already seen a bird like this, so see if you can figure out what it is. Seeing a raptor with a long tail, long, somewhat pointed wings, and an owl-like facial disc, and some streaking on the upper breast and in the patagial areas. This is another adult female northern harrier. And when we get the top side view of the bird, we can see that signature white rump patch. Here we have a bird with a gray body, but we do see some purple and green iridescence on the neck and white on the underwings. This is a rock pigeon. Here we have a hawk with a long squared off tail and rounded wingtips, although they look a little pointed here because they're tucked back a little bit. Relatively small head. This is a small accipiter. This is a sharp-shinned hawk. Here we have another large dark raptor with a white base to the tail. This is another immature golden eagle. And here's an underside view, and a lot of people ask me, how do you tell a difference between bald eagle and golden eagle? And I think just looking at the shape of this bird, look how small that head is. Look how rounded the wings look, especially how they tuck in here near the body. They pinch in. They're just more curvy looking. They're not as blocky and squared off looking as bald eagles are. And while the golden eagle was soaring, this common raven was actually diving at it, which was kind of amusing to watch. Here we have a raptor with a long tail. We see long, somewhat pointed wings with black wingtips and a dark trailing edge to the secondaries. But overall, otherwise, it's white with a grayish head, although it does have some streaking here on the upper breast. This is an adult male northern harrier. Here we have a different adult male northern harrier, and notice that this one doesn't have as much streaking as that previous one had. Here we have a large dark raptor with an all-white head and tail. This is an adult bald eagle. Here we have a hawk with a long tail and long rounded wings, so we should be thinking accipiter, but is it a Cooper's hawk or a sharp-shinned hawk? Well, if we look at the underside, we see some brown teardrop streaking, which normally would be more of a sign of a Cooper's hawk, but some sharp-shinned hawks do show that, so that's not definitive. If we look at the tail, it does look very squared off, which would be in favor of sharp-shinned hawk. But look at the head of this bird. Look at the face. Look how big that eyeball looks. It looks like a big eyeball, giving the face kind of a cute impression. That's a feature of sharp-shinned hawks. So this is indeed a juvenile sharp-shinned hawk. Here we have two birds with long necks and long trailing legs. We see a little bit of a red cap on the head, and overall they're grayish in color, holding their wings very flat. These are sandhill cranes. And if you look at this one on the left, it looks like maybe it has a leg injury. It's holding its foot at kind of a funny angle. Here we see a hawk with that classic hawk or buteo silhouette. We can barely make out the dark patagial bars and the belly band. So this is a red-tailed hawk. And we know it's an adult because it has a dark trailing edge to the wings and a red tail. Here we have a hawk with a long tail and long rounded wings. So we should be thinking accipiter. We see that it has orange barring underneath, so that makes this an adult Cooper's hawk or adult sharp-shinned hawk. But which of the two is it? We see a somewhat small-looking head, but let's also look at the tail. And we can see the tail feathers, and it looks like they're all about the same length, giving the tail a very squared-off appearance. And that, combined with the small size, which we can tell from the speed of the flap, very quick flaps on this small accipiter, this is an adult sharp-shinned hawk. Here we have a small dark flycatcher that flew by and was perched in a tree singing its name. This is an eastern phoebe. Here we have another hawk with a long tail and long rounded wings, so we know it's an accipiter. Orange barring underneath tells us it's an adult Cooper's hawk or adult sharp-shinned hawk, but which of the two is it? Well, we see a relatively small head. We see a very squared off tip to the tail because all of the tail feathers are the same length. And we also see that it's a little more compact looking in shape. Look, it's a little bit of a bulge to the secondaries here, and that's a good field mark for adult sharp-shinned hawks. I always think Cooper's hawks look a little lankier. Their wings look a little longer, their tail looks a little longer, their head sticks out a little bit more. Sharpshins have that flying cross shape, but they just look a little bit more compact, and the wings look a little more rounded. So this is an adult sharp-shinned hawk. Here's another golden eagle, and this is a juvenile, meaning one that was born last year. And this bird gave us great looks for an extended period of time. We picked it out way out in front, and then it came closer, and then the wind blew it back, and then it came closer again. So this bird was a lot of fun to see. Notice the large white patches in the wings and the white base to the tail. And when you see young golden eagles, when they have white on the underside like this, it's in very neat patches. You're looking for these 3 patches, 1 white patch in each wing and the white base to the tail. And you can compare that to the immature bald eagles we see that have a lot of splotchy white throughout the whole underside of the wings and in the wing pit area here. So the golden eagles just look a lot more clean to me. And looking at the top side of the same bird, we see that white tail base again. And the golden eagles that have the large white patches like that on the underside sometimes have small white patches on the top side as well. And this bird also does not have the tawny bar, which would be in this area here, that older immatures and adults show. So this is the juvenile plumage of golden eagle. And here was the last golden eagle of the day, number 8. Yes, you heard that right. We had 8 golden eagles today. You can see it's holding its wings up into a shallow V or dihedral, and you can see the golden nape here on the back of the neck. And you should be a pro at identifying these by now. We have a hawk with a long tail and long rounded wings, so it's an accipiter. You see a very squared off tip to the tail, small head, somewhat compact shape. This is another adult sharp-shinned hawk. Here we have a hawk that has kind of a medium length tail to it, and it's drooping its wings a little bit. We see extensive orange throughout the underside, plus a black and white pattern to the wings. And we see pale crescents here near the wingtips. This is an adult red-shouldered hawk. Here we have a large dark raptor with a large head, a lot of splotchy white throughout the underside of the body and the wings. This is an immature bald eagle. Here we have a small raptor with pointed wings, so it's a small falcon, and overall it's light in color underneath. This is an American kestrel. Taking a look at the eBird checklist for the Hawkwatch, today we had 66 species, which is the most we've had so far this season. And I'll scroll down to the American goshawk, and you'll see that it's marked as sensitive. So that means if you were to view this checklist, it won't show up. It's just a way that eBird protects certain species that might be sensitive, especially species that might be rare nesters in an area. They're just trying to avoid people disturbing those species, so they don't go out in the alerts and they don't show up in some of the public output. So if you go to the checklist, that's why you won't see the American goshawk listed, but it is indeed on the list visible to me. I had 3 new species for the season today, which were Eastern Phoebe, American goshawk, and cedar waxwing. Taking a look at the hawk count report for our migrant raptor totals, today we had 726 turkey vultures, 1 osprey, 9 bald eagles, 14 northern harriers. For accipiters, we had 17 sharp-shinned hawks, 14 Cooper's hawks, and 1 American goshawk. For buteos, we had 7 red-shouldered hawks, 23 red-tailed hawks, and 2 rough-legged hawks. We had 8 golden eagles, and our only falcons of the day were 9 American kestrels, for a total of 831 migrating raptors. That brings the March total to 4,341, and the season total to 4,499. And taking a look at the forecast for tomorrow, there's going to be southerly winds overnight with some periods of rain. Then for the day, they're mostly calling for overcast skies, maybe a little bit of sunshine in the morning that was showing up on the hourly. Slight chance of a rain shower, high in the low 50s. The winds are going to start out from the southwest, fairly light, I think around 7-8 miles per hour. And then at some point in the late morning, early afternoon, there's going to be a cold front coming through, and then the winds are going to get a little bit stronger and be from the west-northwest. So this forecast isn't as favorable as it was looking a few days ago when we were looking at it, but I think it could still end up being a good day. It's mostly going to depend on how thick the cloud cover is. So hopefully it'll just be a thin cloud layer, and hopefully those winds stay more to the southwest and stay that way longer before shifting. With that cold front coming through, sometimes we can get a really good push of migrants ahead of the cold front. So like I said, not looking as much of a slam dunk as we were hoping for, but I think it could still end up being a good day. And we're getting into the peak of the turkey vulture migration. So there's a lot of vultures that are waiting to move. And so if there's the winds to push them, I think they'll come on through. So should be a good day to come out to the Hawk Watch. And also with those southerly winds overnight, it should be another good morning for songbirds. I'd expect some more new songbird arrivals. So I'll be out first thing in the morning, probably at the East Spit, to see what we can find. Thursday's looking like a mix of sun and clouds with a high of 47, winds west-northwest at 10 to 15 miles per hour, so slightly less favorable wind direction, but with that sunshine, that should get some birds up and moving. Would expect moderate migration. And for Friday, looking very similar, mix of sun and clouds, high around 45, winds west-northwest at 15 to 25 miles per hour, so slightly stronger, maybe a little bit stronger than we would prefer, so gonna be a little bit uncomfortable as the wind blows us around, but we'll probably still get some moderate migration. All right, well, I know this was a long video, so thank you for sticking around with me to the end of it. And today was just a fantastic day of birding and hawk watching overall. I think 8 golden eagles is probably the most I've ever had in a day here at Braddock Bay, and come to think of it, probably the most I've ever had in a day where I've been the official counter at a site. So really cool day. Plus the American goshawk was just the cherry on top. So we'll hope for more good hawk watching days in the coming future. And hopefully tomorrow will be the next big day. We'll cross our fingers and hope that the weather conditions hold and are favorable for good migration in the morning. So hope you can join us soon at the Braddock Bay Hawk Watch. Again, if you like these videos, please hit the like button and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of these daily updates. From Lyco Birds, this is David Brown. Thanks for watching.